Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome again to the poem of the day for today, Thursday, September 4th, 2025. And today is a special day because it is the 50th entry into Poem of the Day. So I've been doing this for 50 days now and haven't missed a day yet. I began it just as a kind of idea I had over the summer and thought it would be a nice excuse for me to read more poetry, intentionally to read more poetry. And I thought there was a chance that there might be a few people out there who also enjoyed reading poetry or hearing poetry read, and then that perhaps a couple of my thoughts could inspire or inform or be of interest to them. And throughout that time, it served as a sort of devotional practice for me, a kind of disciplined practice. And I think it's made me a better reader throughout the process. So I'm happy to be celebrating that small milestone, and I hope to be able to continue for 50 more entries. Excuse me. Today, I'm going to read a poem from this collection called You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World. And it is edited and introduced by Ada Limon, who is the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States. This week, we've been doing some poems that are nature and autumn focused, and I've also talked a couple of times just about the powerful sense of smell. And this poem brings a couple of those things together. Communing with nature, but also a feeling of separation from nature, a way in which certain other beings are perhaps more at home in nature than we are. And this poem is by Michael Kleber-Diggs. It's called Canine Superpowers. It's about walking your dog, and I think recognizing that the world is completely different to them, both in terms of the dangers we see, but also the dangers that they see, and then the pleasures that they see that we might be blind to, or in this case, sort of scent blind to. So again, this is Canine Superpowers by Michael Kleber-Diggs. And there's a dedication. It says, Como Park, Woodland Outdoor Classroom for Ziggy and Jasper. We stroll the grounds and stop at every tree, at every chicken bone, each new coneflower. Their noses lead to everything we see. I'd be asleep if it were up to me. Still, slick with dew, this city park seems ours as we stroll the grounds and stop at every tree. Perils persist, real possibilities. I scan the grass for things they can't devour. Their noses notice things that might harm me. Sometimes we'll spot a fox, surprise a bee, find trash, broken glass, have a sad encounter on our daily rounds to check on every tree. 3 times we've come upon wild coyotes, sensed before seen through canine superpowers. All of them have smelled what I'm soon to see. They stare, we stare. There's no anxiety. Milliseconds transform into hours. We stroll the grounds and stop at every tree. Their noses lead to everything I see. So I really like this poem for multiple reasons. It reminds me of walking my own dogs. And as you know, if you followed the series, I have a dog named Cooper, who's not with me here today. But he can be kind of frustrating to take walks with because he marks a lot, but also that he stops to sniff everything. And I have to remind myself that just because our path is the same to me, it's not the same to him. Dogs have something like 40 times the strength of our smell. And so whatever changes throughout the 12 hours of the night or the 24 hours within a day that since they last walked through that place is going to leave these particles behind that dogs can detect that we can't. And so it's almost an entirely new world to them. And so that they're absorbed in that and paying attention to it and instantly fascinated by it. And I think that that's a very important lesson that we can take away about our own natural environment, that just because we can't see the dynamic ways that an environment is always changing, just because they're imperceptible to our human senses, does not mean that they are stagnant ecosystems. And yet, I think something else that's interesting in this poem is also the way in which the dogs spot for the speaker, the dog walker, potential dangers, right? Like the coyotes, which would be a danger, of course, to both the dogs and to the person. But that the dog walker has to scan the ground for things that the dogs are going to try to eat that would be dangerous to them, or that they might step on, like the broken glass. There's a mention in here of, I forgot where the chicken bone, second line, at every chicken bone. I had another dog previously, Lily, who loved to sort of scavenge for food when we walked around outside after around the apartment complex. And for whatever reason, my neighbors could not get their chicken wing bones to stay in the dumpsters. Perhaps they were dug out by the raccoons, I'm not sure, but she loved those. And as you know, chicken bones will splinter, and they're really bad for dogs because they can splinter and they can puncture their esophagus. So the number of times I would have to sort of pry her jaws open and pull these chicken bones out, much to her dismay. But it was something that I had to be sort of constantly on guard for there. And so there's this balance that's depicted in this poem of what we are perceiving as dangers and what we're perceiving as treasures that one can glean from there. And the style and the structure of the poem, I think, is also really sublime and fascinating. Like the poem yesterday, the Auden poem yesterday about autumn. I'm sorry, not Auden. It was Keats, and it was about autumn. There's a sound resonance that changes throughout this poem. So at the beginning, you'll hear stroll, ground, stop, and then we get every tree, every chicken bone, and each new cone flower. So you're getting an assonance and then a consonance within those first two lines that create a sound, almost a sound of sort of walking through grass or walking through dried leaves. And then we have an internal rhyme in the fourth line. I'd be asleep if it were up to me, which of course rhymes with tree and sea from previously, right? In this one, we also get the hours, stroll the grounds, and stop at every tree. The seventh line, perils persist, real possibilities. 2 lines later, noses notice things that might harm me. There's a lovely consistent sonic quality to this, and you'll notice with every stanza being 3 lines, those are tercets. There's 5 tercets in this before ending with a stanza, which leaves us at 19 lines. And I looked back through and recognized that this poem is a villanelle, which means that it has 19 lines in it, but also that there's a repetition of a couple lines that, based upon their placement within the poem, changes the subtext. The context changes the subtext. So just to pay attention to a couple of those, the 3rd line and the 19th line are their noses lead to everything I see. At first it's everything we see, and then finally it's everything I see. And so the speaker goes through this journey of basically saying that at the beginning, the dogs lead the walk because whatever they smell, they want to get closer to. And he just kind of lets them go because he'd rather be asleep. But then by the end, when they're staring at the coyotes, at first there's a sense of threat, but then they tell us there's no anxiety, and the milliseconds transform into hours. So this rapt attention then draws the speaker out of the kind of aloof boredom that they're in. And that the repetition of the line, their noses lead to everything I see, then changes from, they're just dragging me along on this walk, to, wow, the things that you perceive are now also drawing my attention and drawing me into the present here. There's another line. The first one says, we stroll the grounds and stop at every tree. And that's the 18th line, the second to last line there. We stroll the grounds and stop at every tree, which then suggests it's sort of the walk back home. But first, the strolling the grounds is kind of pulled along and directed by the dogs. And then in the end of the poem, it seems to be something that the speaker and the dog walker is participating more actively in. And so I really love this poem, because it's about dogs, and it's because it's about our relationships with our dogs, and that um, the way in which they perceive the world is something that is so foreign to us that sometimes it can be frustrating and challenging. But if we allow it to open itself up to us, it also opens up to us these vast mysteries of the natural world that lie beyond our perception. And the poet here refers to it as a superpower. And it seems to me the superpower isn't so much just the intense ability to smell, but also the ability to then take in the ordinary things that seem mundane and see repetitive, and to see them day after day after day as though they were new, and to pay attention so raptly to something like a coyote that milliseconds stretch into hours, and not in the sense of something being bored or dreadful, but that you lose all sense of time and lose the feeling of yourself as distinct from nature there, which I think is a really beautiful thing that our dogs can help us, can sort of help shepherd us to. So it's a neat and lovely poem, and I really am fond of the structure and the sonic qualities of it as well. I hope you enjoyed the poem along with me. And again, thank you for joining today, especially as it's a special episode, being episode 50. And I wish you all a very peaceful day.